Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be a stand because I'll try to move a lot. So if you don't mind, I will be a stand. Okay, as I was saying, good afternoon, everyone. My name is José Azorín, and I come from the Hernández University of Elche, here in Spain. It's a pleasure to meet you, including the Scientific Council, for the first time. So I'm going to talk about different projects that we have been developing around neurorehabilitation. Specifically, I will be focused on one recent result that we have got when we have developed a brain-machine interface that is capable of commanding a lower limb exoskeleton. Before doing that, let me present my lab very briefly. We come from Elche. I know everyone here in Valencia knows Elche, but maybe people outside of Spain didn't know. We are located in Elche, not to Alicante, we are in the Mediterranean area. Indeed, we are close to Valencia, around 200 kilometers. And we started to work with brain-computer interfaces about 15 years ago. And first of all, we started to develop some brain-machine interfaces for commanding external devices, such as, for instance, external robots. And after that, we moved to the field of neurorehabilitation, because in a brain-machine interface, you are capable of controlling some devices, but you don't need to move any muscle of your body. You only need to think about moving, for instance, your body. So for that reason, we thought that maybe it was a good approach for trying to develop new devices that were commanded by, the brain. So what is the problem that we want to solve? The problem is this. As you know, stroke and spinal cord injury produces a lot of problems in healthy people. Basically, because as a result of a stroke or a spinal cord injury, you have important problems of mobility. So this is a special problem in adults and elderly people. So as a result of that, maybe you can have some problems like this. For instance, you can see here that the problem can walk, but the problem is that you cannot walk in a natural way. So how do we do for solving this problem? So basically, what we do is to follow a traditional therapy of rehabilitation. As you can see here in this video, this is an example of a traditional motor rehabilitation that follows what is called the bottom-up approach. What is this bottom-up approach? The problem is here in the brain of the person, because maybe because of the stroke, he has lost a lot of connection in his brain. But as you can see here in the video, there are some people that assisting the movement of the leg of the person. I mean, they are acting on the bottom level in order to try to influence the top level, but they are not acting on the top level. This is a traditional way to, address this kind of problem of rehabilitation. Well, as you can see here, you need a lot of people for doing that. There are two people that actually moving the legs of the person, and a lot of time the movements are very repetitive, are always the same. So for doing that, maybe we could use other devices, such as, for instance, exoskeleton. An exoskeleton is a robot, but the actuator of the robot are situated in the articulation, in the joints of the body. For instance, you can see here we have different actuators that are placed in the knees, in the hip, in the ankle. So that way, when you apply the forces, you can produce a movement of the legs of the person. But in all these devices, the problem is that, okay, you can move around, but for moving, you need to press some button, or you need to try to shift your body. And this is not very natural. When we are walking, we don't press any button for walking, we move. So in that case, we thought, okay, so maybe we can use a brain-computer interface for moving our body and even for developing a new kind of rehabilitation. So what is a brain-computer interface? Basically, it's a device when you are recording the brain signal of the user. For instance, you can use EEG signal that is non-invasive. And after that, you need to decode that information in order to send a command to a device. In this case, we are going to send commands, for instance, for starting the work, or for stopping the work of an exoskeleton. So in this approach, we are introducing a new kind of rehabilitation, because okay, we are using the same approach that I have said before. We are doing a bottom-up approach. I mean, we are moving the legs of the person. There is not a person moving the leg, but it's the robot who is moving the legs. But in addition, we have introduced a new rehabilitation that we call the top-down approach. I mean, in this case, if you want to move, you need to think about moving your legs, and the brain-machine interface needs to decode that information from your brain. So that way, we think that combining a brain-computer interface with an exoskeleton, we can, get a stronger neuroplasticity of the person. I mean, we are going to do a better recovery of the person because we are trying to imitate the behavior of the human body. Okay, so I'm going to present a result that we have got in this project that is called Gait, that is related with a new brain-machine interface that we have developed for commanding a lower limb exoskeleton. This is a project that we are doing with several centers. My university is coordinating the project, and we are collaborating with 3 hospitals in Spain. This is the main hospital for paraplegics in Spain, that is in Toledo. On the other hand, we are collaborating with the Institute Goodman in Barcelona, and also with the main hospital in Asturias. And we are also collaborating with the University of Houston in the US. So basically, what we are trying to do is to develop what we call an BMI to control asynchronously a robotic device. So basically, when we are working, what our body does is, okay, I think about moving my legs, and automatically my body starts to walk. But I'm not thinking all the time about moving my legs. Okay. So in that case, we thought, okay, so we are going to try to imitate this behavior. So as you can see here, the person is stand with the exoskeleton, and he thinks about moving his legs. And when the brain-machine interface detects that, a command is sent to the robot, so the robot starts to walk. But the person is not all the time thinking about moving his legs. But if the person wants to stop, the person needs to think about stopping their legs. Okay? So for doing that, we tested this approach with 2 different exoskeletons. One in Houston, using the Rex exoskeleton, and another one that is called the H3 from Tecnai in Spain. And what we did is to develop 2 different models for detecting when the person wants to start the walk, and another model for detecting when the person wants to stop the game. So basically, as you can see here, we have a model that we call it starting model for trying to detect the starting of the game, and another model that we call it the motion model for trying to stop the game of the exoskeleton. Well, for doing that, what we did is we did this development with 5 people, with 5 subjects. All of them were healthy, and everyone followed a protocol of 5 sessions. In the first session, basically, they get familiar with the device. He tested the PCI, he tested the exoskeleton, but the people didn't do any kind of, trying to decode the renal. We didn't train in algorithm, only for get familiar with the devices. And after that, in the sessions 2 and 3, we perform the training of the models of the static and the motion model, or in this case, or a deep learning model. Okay, so in this case, as you can see here, we have 2 different kinds of training. One that we follow for the static model, and other for the motion model. Let me give you more detail about this. So basically, what we say, okay, for training the static model, the person has to be static, the person has to be stand, and after that, we say, okay, the person is going to hear an acoustic sound, and the person during 11 seconds has to be relaxed. I mean, the person doesn't need to think about anything. And when the person hears again the acoustic sound, the person starts to think about moving his legs. Okay? So the person is static, and the person starts to think about moving his legs. And when he hears again the acoustic sound, the person starts to think again about being relaxed. On the other hand, for training the model that we use when the person is moving, what we do is the following. We start to move the exoskeleton. the exoskeleton is moving, the person is working with the exoskeleton, but the BCI is not detecting anything. I mean, the exoskeleton is basically working and moving the person. So when the person hears the acoustic sound, the person has to be relaxed, the exoskeleton is moving, but the person is not thinking about anything. And when the person hears again the acoustic sound, the person has to think about stopping his words. So during 15 seconds, the person has to be thinking all the wants to stop. My legs has to stop, etc. And when the person hears again the acoustic sound, the person has to stop about thinking that, start to think about being relaxed. So we did that during 7 trials for static motion and 7 trials for motion. Sorry. And after doing that, we did 2 additional sessions that are session 4 and 5. When first of all we did the training following the same protocol that I have said before, but in addition we performed the test with the exoskeleton. And in this case, the person needs to control the exoskeleton, but only depending if the BCI, the brain-computer interface, is working or not. So I have to say that after training this generic deep learning model, what we did is to perform a fine-tuning to adjust the model for each specific subject and session. So let me give you more detail about this. So basically what we did is, okay, we are going to use some trials of the session 4 and 5 to adjust the model for each specific user and session by, to retraining the last 3 layers of the deep learning model. But also with a different approach that was, okay, we are going also to test to retrain all the layers of the model. And even we compare these deep learning models with a feature-based approach. What is this feature-based approach? So basically in this feature-based approach, we extracted the main feature of the EEG signal using a common spatial pattern algorithm, and then we use an LDA algorithm only to detect if the person wants to stop or if the person wants to start the work. So let me show you here the results that we got. In the open loop results, I mean the cross validation. So basically what we verified is that the best results were obtained when we retrain all the model. I mean, we retrain all the layers for all the subjects and sessions. In this case, the accuracy that we got was around 64% in the static model. I mean, that means that the person is able to detect that he wants to start the work with that accuracy. On the other case, when we want to adjust the motion, I mean, when we want to detect that the person is working and we want to detect that he wants to stop, we get also the best result when we are retraining all the layers. In this case, the accuracy was around 60%. So after doing that, what we did is, okay, so we are going to use the deep learning model, and retraining all the layers. We are going to use that model in order to command the device in closed loop. So in that case, we get this result. So as you can see here, in green, you can see the result that we got to detect the command of starting the work. I mean, as you can see here, in almost all the cases, we get results very good. In all the cases, the subject was capable of starting the work. That means that the person started to think, okay, I want to start my work, and the BCI was actually detecting that. On the other case, we can see that the result that we got for stopping the robot, in some cases were very good, and only one user, the result wasn't enough. But in general, we are quite satisfied with the result. And finally, I want to remark this result that is the ratio of stops. What is the meaning of that parameter? So basically, it means that maybe I am working with the exoskeleton and I don't want to stop the exoskeleton, but the BMI detects that you want to stop. So it's a bad decodification of that parameter. So the idea that this parameter, was almost 0. And you can see here, the best result is about 27%. So we are working now to get a new BMI that we are going to try to decrease this result. Anyway, let me show you one video on of the test that we did. Basically, this is our lab, and you can see here maybe there is some marks. This red mark. There's here another mark that is in yellow. And I would like to say that basically the idea that the person is standing, and we say, okay, you have to try to think about moving your legs. And when the BMI detects that, automatically the exoskeleton starts to walk. And after that, the person is relaxed. And when the person wants to stop, the person needs to think about stopping the movement of the legs. Let me put the video. So basically, the person has started to think about that. The BMI has detected that he wants to walk. And now, when the person arrives to that red line, starts to think about stopping the exoskeleton. And we repeat that process. I have to say that this is a user that got very good result. For that reason, it's working very well. Anyway, I have to say that we have verified that we can develop a brain machine interface that is, able to command a robot. It's able to command an exoskeleton, and in that way can assist the movement of a person that can have motor limitation. Even we have verified that that approach can be used in a clinical environment in order to increase the rehabilitation of people. But this is very important. I have to say that we need to perform clinical trials in order to check that this approach is good for them. I mean, okay, we have verified that we can use the brain signal to command an exoskeleton, but we haven't verified yet that this is better than a person moving the legs of the person. This is a point that we have to test. Indeed, this new project, we are, as I have said before, we are collaborating with several hospitals. But the idea is to verify with real patients, that this is actually a potential rehabilitation therapy. Well, finally, let me thank all the people from my lab, because they are actually the people that are doing the hard work. I'm only telling you what they are doing. So that's all. Thank you for being here, and I will be happy to answer any question. Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen them for different people.
Yes, more or less. But
Yeah, but then I have two questions. One, you need to normalize how. And second, do you compare with just training for one particular subject, just one?
I mean,
It would be better, right?
yeah, I mean, the problem is that you try to think, I mean, we thought, first of all, okay, maybe there is a pattern that is very similar for each user when they are thinking about that. But actually, it's not very common. This is not very common, because basically each user has a different signal. Even if I put the EEG cap and I start to think, okay, I'm moving my legs, and I do the same maybe 5 minutes later, the signals are different. So we need to adjust the classifier for every time that the user is using the system. So that's a problem, and you need to spend some time for training every day for the user. That's a problem, because maybe, for instance, when I'm putting my EEG cap, I'm recording the EEG signals, but I'm recording not only my thought about moving my legs, but also recording maybe, the sound and anything. I mean, the environment. So for that reason, it's very difficult. That's right.
At circle, and then see which ones you distinguish better. And this, I think, goes well for several days before. I don't know if you tried something.
Yeah.
It's very unnatural. That when you like to stop, you have to think of.
That's right. I mean, we did that in other projects.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the patterns are very different.
Yeah.
More stable patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to find more stable patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that in other projects, but the problem is that here we try to do something that is natural for the user, and it has to be, you know, potential for rehabilitation. So for that reason, but what we did, and I haven't explained enough, is that when we tell the people, okay, you have to think about moving your legs. We don't do that. I mean, what we do is, okay, you have to think about the feeling that you have when you are walking. And it's even more complicated. Why? Because if I say anyone, think about your legs, maybe you are thinking that you are looking at you from an external point of view that you are walking. Or maybe you are thinking only about your legs. Or maybe some students told me, no, I'm thinking about kicking a ball. So anyway, the best thing is to try to think about the feeling that you have when you are moving your legs. Because the representation in the motor cortex is better. So for that reason, in the first day, you say to the user, okay, read this document when you have to think about, you know, how do you have to think actually about your legs. So it's quite complicated. Yeah.
Does that also help with the rehabilitation goal? On rehabilitating that some of those cortex centers, right, the motor cortex centers. So what the importance of thinking about the actual.
That was the reason. I mean, because what we try to do is, you know, what we try to do is simulate the human body, and when we do that, you have to think about your legs, and you know the signal is going around your spinal column and that. So we are doing a bypass, but we are trying to emulate the behavior because according to the literature, this is what happens in the brain. And what is try is when people are doing the rehabilitation of people, they are trying to get that connection again operative. No? So we are trying to do that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for the question because I don't know if you already mentioned. So according to the picture extraction, you make any analysis or what are the specific part of the brain taking part in several movements?
Yeah. Basically, the problem is that the representation of the brain, the motor cortex area is this one that is related with all the movement. But the problem is that the part that is related with the legs is just in the middle of both hemispheres. So it's just in the middle. But it's not external, it's inside of the hemisphere. So basically, we put some electrodes around this area, but we put more electrodes because we have to apply some techniques for removing artifacts. Because when you are moving, there are some artifacts. When you are closing your eyes, there are some artifacts that you need to mitigate for get a better signal.
It's a neuroscientist, became famous because he found the so-called Jennifer Aniston neuron. Experiments that whenever seeing a picture of Jennifer Aniston, or even not seeing a picture, also thinking about Jennifer Aniston, in the temporal lobe there was some specialized neurons that would trigger. I wonder if something like this, because this together goes that we've got Carl said about finding our more stable patterns. It appears that this was very stable from one subject to the other. That doesn't mean that it's exactly the same. But there are neurons that are always located in the same area of the temporal lobe. That could be an indirect way of controlling the exoskeleton by thinking about,
Yeah, I mean.
not necessarily Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, yes. Of course, I mean, you can do that.
They did that because it works with very famous people.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed, maybe you can use what is called evoke potential. I mean, you can use like external signals
Yes.
that your brain automatically changes because of that signal.
Uh,
I mean, we developed some years ago
Yeah.
a BMI that allows you to come up to browse through internet using only your signal, but you need this kind of external signal. But in this case, the problem is that we need to think about our legs because in that way we are working on the brain, on the motor cortex area. That's the reason. Because when you are thinking about your legs, the activity that is produced in the brain is almost the same that when you are walking. So for that reason, we are doing that. So I mean, imagine that, okay, I want to command, I don't know, a robotic system in my house. You could do that. Okay, so when I want to start the lights, I'm going to think about a famous actor. But here is the point is that. Okay, so thank you a lot.